everyone, happy Halloween. I hope you guys are enjoying this day. If you're going out, stay safe, wear a mask, use hand sanitizer, wash your hands, do what you need to do. And so, in today's video, I want to talk about a game that I've been meaning to play. I actually picked it up around when it came out and just put it on the back burner, and into the backlog it went. And then, in lieu of spooky season, I decided I'd pick it back up and finish it, and that was Resident Evil Village. Now, I know Resident Evil is kind of in a weird spot in terms of where the series is going. We have the classic fans who, are familiar with the formula that the classic series had. Then we've got the third person, more action-oriented, and now we have the first person with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and now Resident Evil 8 Village. So, I'm not going to go into, all of that. I just know there's some criticisms with Village, and is it really Resident Evil, and this, that, and the fourth. And this is not what that video is about. This is just me going off the cuff and talking about my experience with Resident Evil Village. Now, Resident Evil Village takes place not right after 7, but a couple years after 7. Mia and Ethan have been saved by Chris, and they are essentially in hiding. And I don't really want to get into the story too much because I feel like a story is something that the player should always experience, and I really don't want to talk about it that much. But anyway, something happens. Their daughter is kidnapped, and Ethan's got to save their daughter Rose. So you find yourself in this European setting, rundown, ransacked town or village. And so essentially you have to take down the 4 lords. These 4 lords are... the game doesn't outright say that they're based upon these mythological creatures, but you can make that assumption yourself. The game tells you that they're failed experiments, but I mean, come on, we can know that obviously the Lycans are literal werewolves and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's your job to take down these 4 lords, defeat a big baddie at the end that I'm not going to say who that is, just because I don't really want to spoil too much in the story. I really want to talk more about the gameplay. One thing I will say before we leave the subject of the story is, in my personal opinion, I thought it was handled really well. I really enjoyed the ending. The only thing that I was kind of bummed out about, and I talked to my friend about this, was they really make you kind of attached to Ethan during this game, and you really feel like you're getting to know him, and he's got a lot of character development, and he's just not this just kind of drab and boring person that he was in 7. And it kind of sucks to get all this character development, and then what happens at the end happens, because you get attached to this character. But it was nice to experience that through, which was nice, and I think they handled that really well. And I will say, overall, with all of the characters in the game, I think they were handled well too. The voice acting was really nice. The emotions were really on. I just think everything in the storytelling department was handled really well, in my opinion. Now, moving right on to the gameplay, the first thing I noticed was that it definitely ramped up the action for sure. So if you were coming from 7 expecting more horror and less action, in my opinion, I would say you're going to definitely get a little more action and less horror, but there is a lot of horror in this game, don't get me wrong, it is a Resident Evil title after all. I would say, in some sense, it's kind of horror light, definitely not as much as 7, but a lot of good elements to it. The combat, though, was really fun. I mean, I liked the new enemies, even though there was really only 2 types. Well, I guess there was a bit more, but really 2 main types that you would see, which were these failed vampire experiments, or zombies, whatever you want to call them, and then the Lycans. And there were some other ones, but those were the main 2 that you'd be running into. And, they proved to be, just as fun as the zombies were in 2 and 3. It was a good change of scenery, not seeing, the same zombies over and over again, which was really nice. And overall, I really enjoyed the setting that 8 took place in. I think it was really intriguing. Especially story-wise, there's some things you find out in the latter half of the game that are really interesting, and I liked it. Now, in terms of combat, I thought it was really fast. It was fluid. The action was intense. I will say it was a bit easy. I played on standard, and I only died twice. once during the first encounter with the Lycan, just because I was like, wait, what's going on here? I didn't know if I was kind of still in like the prologue, I guess. And then once during the final boss fight. And that was really it. The game didn't really prove to be too much of a challenge. And ammo's everywhere. Like, you will be finding ammo left and right. So it's going to be very rare that you don't have what you need to take someone out. I will say the puzzles were also toned down just a little bit. I mean, I enjoyed them, but some of them were, I wouldn't say blatantly obvious, but they didn't require too much thought. It almost felt like, in my opinion, that they were just kind of thrown in there because for the sake of being in there. So there was that. There's also the Duke, which doesn't return, but the shop and upgrading your weapons does. And there's a pretty cool nod that he makes to the merchant from RE4. And this was fun. I really liked upgrading my equipment, and that was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. There's also a new element, which is cooking. And this was pretty good and bad, because I like the fact that you actually had to find these animals, kill them, then bring the correct materials that you needed to the Duke, and then he would make the meal for you, which would increase your health, defense, whatever it may be. But I mean, you are already pretty good to begin with, so even then it felt like it was kind of unnecessary. I mean, there were some times where I could block at least 4 or 5 attacks before anything actually dealt any damage to me. So like I said, it really felt like the overall difficulty was toned down just a bit. I mean, I remember even in 3, I died a couple of times, especially in RE2 remake. There was I suppose Village lacked those suspenseful moments where it was kind of fight or flight mode, right? Especially in the earlier RE games, where there were some moments where you had to run, that you just had to run and you had to figure something out later. You couldn't stay there. In Village, it was definitely like, oh yeah, I'll be fine no matter what. You kind of really weren't scared that much, because you knew for the most part you could take these guys down. I mean, even in some sections, I was taking those Lycans down with just the knife. And so overall difficulty kind of took a backseat there. I will say, though, the overall lords, I really enjoyed each lord. There was one in particular that is a possessed doll, and I really liked her area because there was no combat, which was pretty interesting. I mean, it was kind of reminiscent of PT, if you guys remember that, from Hideo Kojima and Konami before it was taken off the PSM. But yeah, and it really delivered that atmosphere. It was definitely freaking creepy, especially seeing that baby that came out. Man, that thing was ugh. But yeah, there are moments like that I really enjoyed in the game. And I will say it was a bit disappointing, especially with the first boss, which I'm not gonna name her, but we all know who she is. You get to her in about an hour in the game, and mind you, her boss fight is really cool, but it is done pretty quickly. And especially her 3 daughters were, oh my gosh, I mean, those guys were extremely easy to take down. So it was just like, I didn't really feel anything too worrying until I got into the final, I would say about the final part of the game, where I was in the final Lord's factory. And that's when I started to kind of feel more Resident Evil-esque, because I was kind of a little worried can I take these guys out? Do I have enough ammo? Like, kind of strategizing a little more, because everything before that, it definitely felt like a more action-oriented game, just with some horror thrown in there. Visually, I think the game's stunning. I mean, but we all knew this. It's running on Capcom's RE engine, and it looks really, really good. The one thing that was pretty cool playing it on the PS5 was with the DualShock. You actually had a little bit of feedback depending on which weapon you were using, so that was pretty cool. And, overall, I really enjoyed Village. I would even go as to say it has dethroned the Resident Evil 2 remake, and it is by far my favorite Resident Evil game. And I always have a good time. I'm not a huge Resident Evil fan. I'm probably more casual, but I always have a good time playing a Resident Evil title, so I'm not looking into Village in too depth, not too deep for me. But I just wanted to give some of my overall thoughts on the game, especially because, it's spooky season and it's a horror game. So, would I recommend that you play it on Halloween, during Halloween, before Halloween, after Halloween? Well, the chances are you could be playing it during Halloween, because this video will be coming out on Halloween. But yes, I would definitely recommend it. In my opinion, it was a very solid game. wasn't too long, and yeah, it's something that Resident Evil fans know. The games typically can run you anywhere from like 5 to 10 hours. And oh, Mercenary mode is back, so you know, you can play some of that afterwards. And there's some other unlockables as well. But yeah, all in all, I had a great time with the game. I definitely recommend that you guys pick it up, and I will see you in the next video.